Welcome back to another episode of the Voices of Business, a Santa Cruz Valley Chamber of Commerce podcast. It's good to be with you. I'm your host, Joshua Maddux. Corey is, I don't know, off in Hawaii, traveling the world, doing something. Who knows? This is where we talk about business in the Santa Cruz Valley and really all of the country. But a lot of business owners and business leaders and other community leaders we talk with are right here from our hometown, Santa Clarita. And sometimes we don't just stick to business. We'll talk about leadership, management, life, and really wherever the conversation takes us. Please remember to subscribe if you haven't already. Tell a friend, give us a good rating and review. All of that really helps spread the word and raise awareness on more conversations that we're having, similar to like the one we're having today with Jason Beaman. He's a partner at Poole Shaffery, and excited to have him on the show today. Good to have you.
Thank you so much, Joshua. I'm really excited to visit the podcast.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, you're a partner with Poole Shaffery, so insert legal description here, right? Or disclosure, rather. Um,
This is not legal advice.
yeah, definitely. So, I totally get it, totally understand. But yeah, at the same point, if you're listening and yeah, need an attorney, hire an attorney. Don't take this show as legal advice. Cool. Well, want to obviously talk about like how did you get to becoming an attorney? So, um, you attended UC Irvine, and then your career path led you from there to Southwestern, and you have a law degree from there. What was that education path like? What was the choice in those schools?
Yeah. I went to UC Irvine. I graduated in 2006 there. Then I went to work for a law firm as a legal assistant. So I got some kind of basic legal experience, filings and things like that. And I really liked it. So I really liked the process of legal practice and helping people with solve issues. And so I ended up going to Southwestern, really great experience at Southwestern, really awesome um, students in my class, really awesome professors. And that was, law school is a very general legal education. You study kind of all the subjects, so you don't usually get out, with any specialty in mind. But once I got out, I tried a few different things. I worked as a personal injury attorney for a little while. I did not like that. That was not my thing. And then I ended up doing transactional work at a law firm, and working with business owners, working with real estate people that own real estate, doing transactions, either business or real estate transactions. And I really fell in love with the process of doing transactions, helping business owners, run their business, drafting contracts, and those kind of things. I really like the details, getting into the details about how deals are done and making the deal happen.
That's awesome.
So I ended up at Poole Shaffery about 9 years ago. I've been here for 9 years, and that's my practice is business transactions, real estate transactions, helping essentially problem solving and helping business owners, get their legal ducks in a row.
That's really good. You said you've been there for 9 years. I say recently, but it's been what, 2 years since you became partner over there.
Right. Yeah. I made partner. I think 2 years ago in March next year. So it's almost about a year and a half, a little more than that.
Awesome. Awesome. So want to talk through a little bit about like that career path. You obviously described it high level, like sort of, getting into how you found where you are today. But what were some of the different challenges maybe at some of those other law firms or things that you saw that shaped that career path even further? Like obviously the transactional element of business law. Were there specific elements that that you found, you mentioned in like personal injury that you said, not my cup of tea, definitely not. Were there other elements that you saw or maybe businesses that you saw that were helped by one of those attorneys or, obviously we can't go into super detail on like, in this case, this situation.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a variety of things that, I've seen I've seen lots of businesses, and a lot of times I think business owners a lot of times get overwhelmed or they just don't think about it, don't think about the legal side of their business. Most business owners are, they're running their day to day business, trying to get customers in the door, trying to get paid, trying to get work out the door, and buttoning up the legal aspects. Everything from selection of an entity. Do I get an LLC? Do I get a corporation? Do I do a sole prop? So helping to make those decisions and helping to kind of streamline and almost take the burden of those legal decisions from the business owner and let them focus on their business. That aspect of it, I really enjoyed. Taking on the complexity. So as a lawyer, that's pretty much what our education is just talking about all the little details, all the little complexities with contracts, with the law. And so that type of analysis really just speaks to me. So I can take that on and let the business owner, handle their expertise, their business. Um, so there's that kind of I saw I know this is not my original thought or anything, but this is a good way to integrate the legal and the business side. Um, there's good opportunities there.
So it's a lot more preventative law. Um,
Right, right, yeah, when I was doing personal injury, it's all about, you wronged me,
yeah.
I'm injured and you're fighting the big insurance companies and fighting tooth and nail to get dollars for your client, whereas I didn't that's not my style. My style is more, cooperative and more, let's problem solve in advance, to get things set up correctly so that we avoid issues in the future. And then if issues do arise, like um, I've dealt with I've dealt with some cases that we handle some probate and trust administration in our office as well, and that kind of bumps up against a lot of the real estate and the business issues. We've had cases where people pass away and they don't set things up correctly, and then there's a lot of legal issues and it's a big problem. And the client just wants to get maybe a piece of real property sold, and so we have to come in and jump through the hoops and figure out how to get the goal of the client completed.
Yeah. 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 And it's definitely one of those things with especially business law where a little bit of planning, having the right contract and the right expectation. Like I'm trying to remember there was somebody I was listening to a few years ago and they were talking about um you know, any type of scope of work or any type of expectations, like, if you write those down, they're like, "I don't care if it's on a napkin, in an email." They're like, "You open up a voice recording in an app and, you and whoever you're having a conversation with sort of outline what you guys are expecting and what the outcome is and who's doing what, and both parties have a copy." They're like, that solves so many problems because it's like, "Oh, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do A," and then that person doesn't do A, and now the whole business relationship falls apart or whatever.
Right.
Like, we understand where the communication breakdown was rather than, "Oh, I thought you were gonna do that. You thought I was gonna do that." Um, Recently, um, I sat in on, a new business venture that sort of formed, and the the partners, as they were talking through, okay, is this something we're addressing? Is this something we're going to be doing? One of them said, okay, what is everything that could go wrong with this? What is everything that every reason we shouldn't start this venture? And let's think through that first before the like, why should we? And I think oftentimes we get this excited element of like, oh, there's this, new client or this new thing or this new whatever. And we jump into it without thinking about the like, what is the opportunity cost there?
Yeah.
And that's really like some of the analysis that you're talking about is let's make sure that all of our, ducks are in a row and what is the opportunity cost of moving forward and making sure that, there is some legal covering there as well.
Right. We try and ask the questions, the questions that you're not thinking about. We try to, uh, we've seen the deals go bad over time. So, I mean, what you mentioned before, that you have to have, uh, well, in contract law, we call it meeting of the minds. So you have to have the two sides have to actually agree on what that is each in each one of their minds as far as what the contract means. And a lot of times that doesn't happen. A lot of times they're even the paper document may say, the price and, something about what is getting done, but the actual expectations of the parties is not clearly described in the deal.
We have a clause in our contract that literally says no e-commerce is included. No e-commerce website build is included in this on every site that we do that's not e-commerce, because I can't tell you how many times like we've built a website for a client and then 6 months later they're like, oh, can you turn the e-commerce function on? I'm like, we that wasn't in the scope. And they're like, well, just turn it on. I'm like, no, that like it doesn't exist. Like, it physically isn't there, like, we didn't build it, like, it's not part of your website.
Yeah, yeah. That's the people's expectations. They have it in there. You don't know what's in their mind, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so
Well, and that's I think for us, like, being a digital agency, for us, it's also knowing, like, where are you going over the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? And I think the same thing for what you guys deal with is true because, like, if you guys are writing contracts in a specific way, but that business owner is planning on selling their business in 5 years, we may want to rethink the terms of the contract, or we may want to rethink how that's
absolutely.
structured or whatever. And so that's where it's just being transparent and having the expectations, with all parties involved, even if it's an attorney.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's really, really important. I mean, planning for the next 5, 10 years, business owners, from the legal side, that is something that we love being involved, from the beginning, setting you up and then growing with you as the business grows. And that way we can, help guide you to the goals. A lot of times we don't have that opportunity. We have to come in and, midstream and figure out, where they want to go. Maybe they made some mistakes going in the past, but we have to fix those or adjust. So, having good legal guidance at the beginning is really important.
You mean we don't all plan 100% of the time?
I know. Yeah, no, we're dealing with humans, so everybody's got lots of expectations or lots of things on their plate, and sometimes it's hard to do everything and plan it in the ideal world.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. I agree. So I want to wrap up a little bit on like your career trajectory, and then I want to talk more about like what you actually do at Poole and Shaffery a little bit. Talk more about the firm and some of that. But what advice would you give yourself 15, 20 years ago? Um, is there something that you would do differently? Is there different advice that you would give yourself now to like yourself that was starting college, that was, starting that first job? Is there something other than, avoid personal injury law?
I think that one of the things that I think personally, one of the things that I actually struggled with when I was younger was, you know, opening up and and getting involved in things. Getting, I'm kind of an introvert at heart for sure. So going out and meeting people, doing networking, that is not like my favorite thing in the world. Definitely doing things like podcasts and video is not the thing that like really speaks to me. But but over the years I've done it more, and I actually I got my first like really good legal job from a networking event. So I went to a networking event and I met a bunch of people, talked to people, and I got a lead on a firm that was looking for an attorney, and I got the job. So I think one of the biggest pieces of advice that I would give myself is get over that, get out there, meet people. People love helping other people. And everybody's kind of in the same boat, I think, when you're out there networking. So I think there's very few like pure networkers that just love doing it all the time. But um get out there and meet people, and that really will benefit your career, and do it early.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah, I know that was my 2020 New Year's resolution was to like rejoin the chamber. I had been a member prior, but my 2020 resolution was join the chamber, go to in-person meetings, do more networking. So we see how that one went. Um but yeah, no, I agree with you for sure. Like there are so many different elements um with going to those events, whether it's, chamber events or smaller networking groups or industry associations or any of
Right.
that type of stuff. There's absolute value in that. And I think with the chamber specifically, like we've got huge diversity in the types of people, the size of businesses that are there. You've got business owners up to some of the large employers in Santa Clarita as well. So definitely a good way to network and meet people. So
Yeah, it's a fantastic organization.
awesome. So let's talk through a little bit about Poole and Shaffery, what you guys are doing, um, you know, what industry changes are you guys seeing? What issues in the marketplace? What advice can we talk through that, you guys can share?
Yeah, so Poole Shaffery, we are a general practice law firm. So we have lots of different attorneys. We have about 10 attorneys right now that specialize in a variety of practice areas. So we have lawyers that do land use, that do government affairs, that do business transactions, business representation, business litigation. We have, you know, we have a personal injury. We actually have a personal injury defense practice, trucking, transportation cases. We handle for big insurance companies. So we have a very diverse scope of practice for our attorneys. So the things that I could speak to, definitely the business transactions and I also handle probate and trust administration. Um, we're seeing we're definitely seeing, for businesses, we're seeing that uh, sorry, I'm blanking. So from a business perspective, we're definitely seeing that there's always increased regulation. That especially in California, you're dealing with regulation and dealing with all kinds of laws every year. There's new laws. So it's hard to do business in California. It's probably worth it. We're a huge economy and there's a lot of money to be made, but it's going to be challenging. So having your legal ducks in a row is really important. One of the things that I have my eye on right now is something called the Corporate Transparency Act. The Corporate Transparency Act is a new, actually not new, but it just came into effect at the beginning of this year. so 2024. And this Corporate Transparency Act requires all entities, all legal entities, all LLCs, corporations, to file a something called a beneficial ownership statement, beneficial
Oh
ownership
yeah.
report. So this is a new requirement that businesses have to comply with, and the deadline for that report is January 1st of 2025. So we're definitely coming up on it, a couple months away. I haven't heard. I've had a couple clients reach out to me about it, but I really haven't heard a whole lot of activity in the business realm about this report. Uh,
The deadline's not here yet.
the deadline's not here yet. Yeah, I'm sure December
Ask ask
30th.
any
We'll hear.
accountant. Ask any accountant. When do they get phone calls? Like the day before tax day or the day after. That's when it is.
So it's actually a really so the beneficial ownership report is actually a really simple report for most companies. Most companies that have one or two or three owners, you're not going to have a very complex report to file, and you can file it free of charge on the it's on the FinCEN website. So you can go online. There's FAQs and there's guidance on how to make that filing. If if you need to talk to a lawyer about it, you can, we're definitely around to help with that. But it's really a simple report, and you only have to do it once. So, really want to get out there and make sure that businesses are getting that report done. There are substantial penalties if you don't uh, complete the report.
Got it. Yeah, and that's one of those things where I think a lot of business owners overlook having someone who's staying on top of that. Um, and in reality, like you have to file it, whether you file it today or whether you file it 6 months from now. But 6 months from now, you get to pay lovely fines. You get to pay an attorney to deal with maybe some retroactive issues. And there's a bunch of other stuff that that's
Yeah,
not fun that comes into it. It's just like paying your taxes late. Like you end up
right.
paying penalties.
You're gonna have to do it eventually.
Yeah. And now that filing basically declares who owns businesses. So it'll not, I wouldn't say entirely eliminates, but it, reduces the fogginess of some of these like LLC shell companies that own the shell company that own a shell company. And you're like,
Right.
is Joe's Pizza actually owned by Joe, or is there a, giant conglomerate that sits behind it that's 4 layers deep and they're actually, you know, a cheese conglomerate or whatever that owns it? Like,
Yeah, yeah, it is an anti-money laundering law that was
got
passed.
it.
Essentially, they're looking to get at, like you said, the shell companies. People are using shell companies to hide assets, hide funds, and the federal government wants to be able to see that. So businesses have never had to report their ownership like this. This is a totally new requirement. Even even the state of California doesn't really know, except on your taxes, doesn't really know who the owners are from any given moment. Um, this is going to be a report that this is a federal government report, so the federal government is going to have this information. It's only going to be available to law enforcement agencies, and there's some protections for. It's not like a public report that's available,
Got it.
but yeah, that's what they're trying to crack down on, and trying to get the people that are using shell companies.
And is this, I know with a lot of these types of things, like it'll be like, oh, if you do, like the California Consumer Privacy Act is if you're over X million dollars a year in annual revenue, if you're over this size of a business, is there a minimum threshold here, or is it if you do a dollar, have an LLC, you're filing?
Yeah, so the the threshold is basically zero. It is if you have a legal entity that is filed with the Secretary of State in any state. So it's all 50 states. If you have an LLC or a corporation for sure, and then sometimes it depends on the state. It sometimes depends on the if it's a limited partnership. Um, but most people are doing business in LLCs or corporations. So that's the threshold. If you have that entity, you have to report. Now there are exemptions where you can have a business that, and the big one, so they have kind of the ultra regulated businesses. So all of the financial companies, banks, all the big companies that are already regulated by the federal government. They're regulated by the SEC or FinCEN already, or they already have reporting requirements. Those companies are exempt, but your regular average business that's not in one of those highly regulated industries, the exemption that they're going to potentially get is the large business exemption. And in order to get that, it's a large operating company. You have to have 20 full-time employees. You have to have more, and you have to more than 5 million in annual gross receipts or sales. And you have to have a physical operating presence in the United States. So I guess the government is saying that they have enough information about those types of companies, or those companies are not going to be kind of fly by night shell companies. So that's the exemption. You have to meet all those things. It's actually not super clear in the regulations, what happens if you drop below that for 1 year. You probably have to report at that point, and then your information's out there.
Yeah, but then at that point, it's like those are those types of things where, I use the example of like, when you're filing taxes, you're like, technically, you might be able to claim this as a write off. I don't know if you interpret it this way. It's like, okay,
Right.
if you go super overboard on all those, like, I don't know if you interpret it this way, like all of a sudden, if you get audited and you sit down like with someone with the IRS and they go through your books and everything is that way, like my accountant every year is like, "Hey, can I get your mileage record?" Well, I literally have a device on my car that tracks every time it starts, every time it stops, the GPS coordinates of that. I can then take my Google Calendar for work, line the two up, and show you every single meeting, every single mileage, the whole thing. The first year I sent him those two spreadsheets lined up and all the he's like, "You are never getting audited for your mileage." He's like, "This is the most detailed I've ever seen."
Yeah, nobody does this.
Yeah. And I was like, "But I have tech on my car that lets me do that, so why not?" Like, but that's the type of thing where I see it like, so if you're exempt like that, but you're sort of on the borderline, obviously they should, for businesses that size, they should be talking to an attorney about this further. But um, my mindset is like, if filing doesn't have any repercussions, and if it's a more like statement of information type document, I'm like, then you might want to do it. Obviously, talk to an attorney first, but
Yeah.
um, think through it. So, well, so it sounds like I need to do some reading up on that because I have a small business and haven't filed that. So we'll have to get into that further. But
Yeah, and if anybody wants to, I have a one sheet that I can send out, if anybody wants to reach out, or I'm happy to then share it with you,
perfect.
about kind
Yeah.
kind of high level overview of what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, definitely. Awesome. Well, I think one of my key takeaways today is obviously having discussions with an attorney will open you up to having a better understanding of things you might not be doing that is going to get you in trouble or um, maybe a nice fine from the government. And those ones don't go away. You know, late fees from a vendor or
Yeah.
invoices from something, you can have a conversation on, but typically, fines and late fees from the government do not disappear. Um, and, yeah, so awesome. Um, Well, that's really appreciate the insight on that because that's a big one. Um,
Yeah.
so as we, I want to wrap up a little bit here. So as we wrap up, what would you say is the most important habit or sort of mindset, routine that has contributed to your success?
So I think the biggest thing in my are you talking about in my career or in business
In
clients that I
your
see or
let's say both in your career and then we can hit the other one.
okay. So I think in my career, once you so I was so my very background, one of my first jobs in life was as a server. And so that was a waiter in a restaurant. And so once I realized that essentially as a lawyer, you're a service business, right? You're serving customers, you're serving clients. People, when you're a waiter, people are hungry, right? They have demands. They're maybe not in the best mood ever. So understanding, who you're dealing with and that people may be angry with you or may be frustrated or may want things, right now. Um, it's having a mindset of you're serving them, you're trying to understand, where they're coming from, they may be confused about, certain legal issues. They may be confused, maybe concerned about a letter they received from the government, or a demand letter they received from another party. So they're in a delicate situation, right? They are an emotional situation. And as a lawyer, I try to, help them work through that and kind of diffuse their frustrations and explain things. And in that same way that I would, treat somebody who's hungry at a restaurant. So I think that's one of my biggest skills as an attorney. Obviously, I have the legal skills, but being empathetic and emotionally intelligent about who this is a human being you're talking to, and they have their own, concerns and emotions, and that's driving their decision making. That's really important.
That's really good. There's so many similar as you're talking through this, there's so many similarities like between a server and like you're serving your customer information or food that you didn't necessarily control or make. Like
Right.
it could be out of something. It could have been not cooked to their liking. I mean, oh man, there's so many. I love those analogies. I'm a huge fan of that. Awesome. Yeah. So what do you think like habits and stuff that's contributed maybe to, either Poole Shaffery's success and or, some of the client success there?
Yeah. So on the business side for business owners, the biggest habits that I think business owners need to accept is or to implement is uh taking a look at your corporate documents. If you have a corporation, there's requirements. You have to file your annual report, you have to keep your books in order, you have to do your minutes. So there's some kind of corporate hygiene that you have to do on a regular basis. At least yearly, you should be taking a look at your corporate book and seeing, is there anything that I need to be doing? You definitely got to file your statement of information. I see so many clients that have delinquent statement information, and then they get eventually the state of California figures it out, and then they send them a letter saying that they're out of compliance. Now you got extra fees. You're potentially jeopardizing your corporate status. So those kind of hygiene things, get into a regular, have your meeting annually and take a look at your corporate book and see what's out of place. Um, and then from larger, zooming out to our law firm, Poole Shaffery, I think Poole Shaffery has been successful because we're really involved in the community. We give back to the community. We're involved in charitable organizations. We do the chamber. We're doing networking events all the time. So we're getting our firm out there, our firm face, and meeting people, making connections. We're really strong advocates of the Santa Clarita business community, and we've seen it grow, exponentially in what we can do over the last 20 years. So, being a part of the community and getting out there and meeting the businesses.
That's good. It's good. Um, to your tip there on sort of the business hygiene aspect, I will say when I first filed um, my legal filing for my business, what 16, 17 years ago, I used a website called LegalZoom that about a year later, when nothing was filed properly, and I had to hire another attorney who I paid probably double what I would have paid that attorney to do it right in the first place. Um, they referred to it as legal doom. And yeah, I agree. It created a massive paper trail because the problem was I became the attorney. It was like, "Do
Yeah,
you want A or B?" And I was like, "I don't know what the hell these 2 are." And this is 17 years ago. Like, yeah, there's a little bit more documentation online. There's a little bit more, go find a YouTube video and try to understand it yourself. But I literally was like, there was 2 boxes, it was like A or B, and I'm like, "I don't know what the hell one I want." Like, sure, that sounds right. And then that's how you're filing a business, and you
right.
get through it the end, and then all of a sudden you're like, "Oh, cool. So I saved money, but now I'm gonna have to spend double what I would have in the first place to fix the problem."
Yeah.
Um, and then I got it all fixed. And I found out all this when my statement of information letter, and it was like, "Oh, your LLC wasn't filed correctly, this as well." And all of a sudden I had fines, and I was like, "What the heck is going on?" And sat down with an attorney. I was like, "Oh yeah, you see what's wrong here now."
Yeah,
Um,
no, that's the very common story, that happens
yeah,
all the time. So, yes, you can definitely save money, by using an online service, but like you said, you're basically acting like the attorney. You're making all the decisions.
yeah, yeah. You save money the first time around. The second time around, it costs more,
For sure, yes.
and
Doing it
you'll do
again
both.
is, like, 4 times as expensive.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. So one of the questions that we enjoy asking guests is, tell me about a time, um, one of your biggest losses or mistakes. Maybe it's looking back. What would you consider your biggest professional setback? Maybe something that shaped your career. Obviously we don't get into client stuff, but
Um, so I think probably my biggest career setback, was, going back to that personal injury firm that I worked at. Um, basically they told me it wasn't working, and, it was kind of a mutual thing. Like, I was miserable and not doing so well in the job. So, we cut ties, and, um, I was a new graduate of law school. I had a ton of student loan debt. I am was facing the prospects of finding a job in, that was like 2010, 2011. So the economy wasn't so good after the 2008 financial crisis still.
yeah,
A lot of lawyers got laid off. So it was an uphill battle. And that, having the disappointment of having getting a job and then it not working out, uh, that that was tough to deal with. But I stuck with it, and I got out there and did my networking and met people, and it allowed me to actually find the thing that I really enjoy, the passion, that I enjoy in doing transactional work, for business, helping business owners. Um, so had it worked out differently in personal injury, maybe, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to change my specialty and change what I was doing.
Yeah. Very much
So
a one door closed, another open type
right,
situation.
exactly. That's the same, that's the saying, right? And that's true. Uh, you can't find something new until you let go of, the old thing.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, definitely enjoyed our time today and appreciate having you on. Before we go, are there any questions that you have for me?
Um, I didn't know there was going to be a question session.
Would love to flip the script a little bit and throw a curveball.
So you're a business owner, sounds like.
Yep.
You're doing podcasts, and how did you get into podcasting?
So I actually own a digital marketing agency. So Corey, our co-host, is the one who does a lot of the podcasting stuff. I first got into podcasting in during COVID. I mentioned, 2020, my idea was do networking in person and join the chamber and other networking events and do all that. And then COVID hit. And so I started a podcast at that time and started reaching out to people and having those conversations. And it was very interesting. And I don't know if this was partly the COVID sort of bubble around that time of like, people weren't commuting, so they had a little bit extra time. Some businesses were closed, some had weird restrictions. And so like there was like business owners that I would just cold message on LinkedIn and I'd be like, "Hey, I'd love to chat." And they're like, "Sounds great. Here's my cell number. How about next week?" And I'm like, "This is the guy who owns a company that has like 2,000 employees. Like, if I called his office and said, 'Hey, can I have an hour of your like no one would have gave me a cell number." But it was
Yeah,
I think it was just a time and place type situation of like because of COVID, like people it was weird with,
sure.
people were commuting to offices that were an hour or 2 hours away, and then all of a sudden they're not, and, now you have extra time, and what are you doing with that? And people had the availability a little bit, I think, but then also just the conversations there. So, for me, ran that podcast for a little bit, had a handful of episodes, um, and then life happened and, I sort of hit the pause button on that. And then Corey and I, like we were talking about pre-show, we're chatting, man, probably about a year ago now. Um, and I was like, man, I'd love to get back into like interviewing business owners. And he and I were chatting about it. And we're like, let's do that like in our backyard type thing. Like, let's do that here in Santa Clarita. Cause it's one of those things where like, it's cool to hop on a call like this and chat with someone who's doing business, but it's even cooler when like, cool, I'll see you at the next chamber event and like we
Yeah,
can chat and like cool, I'll see you around town. Like, that's cool to know that, you're doing business here in the same city. And so for me, that's sort of a big element of that. So that's sort of why I got into the podcasting realm, why I got back into it a little bit. But yeah, my day-to-day stuff is running a digital marketing agency and helping clients with that. So
awesome, awesome. So digital marketing, that's like websites, or how do you?
websites, digital automation. We're doing a ton of stuff in regards to like AI right now. We've got clients that we basically run all their front end customer acquisition stuff with AI. So everything from someone calling their office, doing voice AI, all the way through appointment booking, up until like home service type businesses. And so basically the first time a human's involved is the date of service, where everything before that is entirely AI driven. And then everything after that is AI driven to follow up sequencing, 14-day reminder to schedule your next service, all of that type of stuff. And so we're able to book and automate and do all that type of stuff. And it's not necessarily to one of my things, like we've been doing automation type stuff and streamlining business processes for years. And I'm never necessarily looking to like, "Hey, how can we fire your whole office staff?" That's not the goal here. The goal here is how can we augment that and how can we double the size of your business? Because in reality, if we can help come in and add some efficiencies, if we can you know, then maybe hire 3 or 4 more service techs in the field, all of a sudden your profit margin is shifting. If your profit margin is shifting, um, then that means you're going to probably be in business longer. If you're going to be in business longer, that means you're going to be employing your staff longer. Um, and that also probably means maybe a pay raise for everybody or whatever. So it's like that's really the focus is how do we automate that? How do we improve that business sort of functionality so that
Mhm.
way the business will be here 5, 10, 15 years down the road rather than how do we be a marketing agency that comes in, runs some ads for 90 days and say, good luck, and then we're out. Um, and sadly, we see a lot of that. Um, why I'm in this space, why I do what I do today is a whole deeper conversation a little bit, but um, this was not my career path. I have a business degree from Laverne. One of the things that you'll find funny is like they said, "Oh, you have X number of credits completed. You need 2 more semesters of classes to get a degree from us," because I transferred in a ton of stuff. And I was like, "Well, what can I take?" And they're like, "Anything business related." I was like, "Can I take 2 semesters of law?" And they're like, "Sure. Don't know why you want to do that for just a business management degree, but okay." And I was like, "Because if I have 2 semesters of law, like I have a better understanding. I'm not an attorney, like, but I feel like a tiny bit more of an understanding of the legal process and contracts and that
Yeah,
than if I wouldn't have.
sure.
Um, and so, it's one of those things where, that's my sort of background in education and stuff. So it's fun.
Nice.
But
Sounds great.
awesome. Well, appreciate having you on the show today. How can those listening find out more about you and or Poole Shaffery?
So the best thing to do is visit our website. So it's www.pooleshaffery.com. Um, and reach out to us. We're happy to sit down and have a conversation about your legal needs. And then thank you
Yeah,
so
and
much
then
for having me, Josh.
awesome. And then you're on LinkedIn as well, or at a chamber event.
Yeah.
Uh, so as always, please follow, rate, and review us wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us at the Voices of Business on social media. You can find me, Joshua Maddux, on LinkedIn and also my company, 95visual.com. And then you can follow Corey at Corey S. Nathan on Instagram, Twitter, and all the other places, I believe. We'd love to have your business on the show as well. If you're a local business in Santa Clarita and a chamber member, please reach out. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.